strange story you might have seen floating around today. I know a few other people have talked about it tonight, but we're going to talk about it as well because it's just so ridiculous. The member for Longman, Terry Young, was speaking in the House of Reps yesterday about quotas, gender quotas. He was speaking against gender quotas, and he made a pretty reasonable point about the fact that, on the whole, men are attracted to certain jobs and women are attracted to certain jobs. Reasonably uncontroversial, I would have thought. This is what he said.
I simply cannot understand why we just cannot accept that men and women have vocations that the majority of each gender is drawn to. This ridiculous practice is supposed to ensure fairness, but of course in reality it creates more problems than it solves. As a husband and a father to 3 daughters, if any of them didn't get a job because of their gender, I'd be filthy. But I'd be just as filthy if they got a job because of their gender. Men tend to be more drawn to vocations that involve maths, physical exertion like construction and trades, whereas women in the main tend to be drawn to careers that involve women and care and other people. Vocations like hairdressers, nursing, social workers and the like will always be more female dominated.
I mean, where's the lie? What he says is true. But Catherine King, the infrastructure minister, well, she saw red.
This is exactly the attitude, member for Longman, that keeps wages for women low, stops them from putting their hands up to learn a trade or work in STEM or represent their communities in this place.
When she saw red, she was red. She pretty bloody red in that suit there too. I mean, for goodness sake, to try and suggest that what he said is sexist, it's not sexist, it's just the truth. But I mean, we need gender quotas. We absolutely need gender quotas because when I drive home at night and they have incessant bloody roadworks going on, I have not seen a male lollipop person in a very long time. All the women have taken those jobs away, so we definitely need male gender quotas in the construction industry, the road building industry, to get blokes turning those lollipop signs again. I think that should be a matter of principle. We need to get onto that. But honestly, what he said is true. What's wrong with it?
Well, it is true. Women are 3% of all construction workers, and similarly, men are 12% of nurses. It goes both ways. There are certain industries that men and women are differently attracted to. In the past, have there been biases against men in nursing or women in construction or the trades? Of course. Should they exist? No. If you can do the job competently, then you should be able to do the job and have equal opportunity to do so. But the reality is we live in quite an egalitarian country now. If you're a girl in Australia and you want to do basically any job under the sun, you're more than able to. And so the argument that somehow those differences exist because of oppression is false. It's choices. Women biologically are wired up to nurture, to be more caring. Of course, there are exceptions to that rule, but that is just a fact if you look at women's personalities on the whole. And if you look at men on the whole, they're generally going out, they want to be the protectors, they want to be in physical industries, hands-on. It's just different. And the idea that in the 21st century, because we're all such great feminists, we can't even acknowledge simple biological reality is so stupid. But I guess it does make sense. When you can't define a woman, you can't acknowledge reality. So it stacks up for Labor.
Look, I think a lot of these professions, I have no doubt that, you know, women are probably by and large more instinctively caring and nurturing than men, and there'd be certain biological realities there. But a lot of this is stuff that is historic, that is grounded in, like if you look at, for example, teaching, where it was overwhelmingly dominated by women, you know, in a large part that would be because, you know, it was done by nuns back in the day, and women indeed were sort of treated like nuns. As soon as they got married, they had to quit whatever job they had, including teaching. So these things have kind of cultural things, and this has led to problems as well. Like there are problems with, we just had a debate about whether or not men should be allowed to be childcare workers, for God's sake. And so we sort of, I suppose, saw the screw on the other foot. But there's issues with, like, educators are really worried that there are not enough men in primary school teaching because kids aren't getting positive male role models in life, young boys.
But why would you want to be a man in teaching? because you get drummed out by everyone who thinks you're a paedophile.
That's right. So you want to actually fix that problem, not just say, oh, teaching's just for girls. Same as we want to get more people into STEM, and that means getting more women into STEM because they're underrepresented. So you want to be saying, you want to be making it easier and better and more attractive for women to get into. Not say that you're biologically.
Why do you have to be shoehorned?
And the idea that somehow women being underrepresented in an industry is inherently a bad thing, I just don't buy that argument. Women are underrepresented in the bricklaying industry. If someone wants to go out and set a quota for 50% bricklayers being women, I don't know what difference that would make to the bricks. Like, I don't understand how someone's gender impacts the work they do.
Well, I can tell you what difference it'd make. It'd make a difference to the number of women who need to retire when they're 50 because their knees have given way and they've tried to have a kid in the middle of it too. I mean, and that's the other biological reality is that, I know it's controversial to say these days, but only women can have children. And that necessarily affects career choices as well. And I know a lot of people don't want to admit that it does, but the reality is that it does, and that is never going to change until they come up with a way, and I'm sure they will very soon, for all of us to be able to bear children. And it'll be an unnatural way, but they'll come up with a way to do it. Until that happens, there will be an innate and natural inequality that exists in terms of employment, because that's just the way it's got to be. But his point, Terry's point, was he'd be filthy if his daughters didn't get a job because they're women, and he'd be filthy if they got a job because they are women. And I think that's all he's trying to say is you should have equality of opportunity. Yeah. And I think that's a fair thing, isn't it?
Totally. We stand with Terry, justice for Terry on this one.